Now the world is crazy, but it still goes round and round. Trying to get my hustle on so I don't hit the ground. Yeah. 2 blunts in the morning just to hold it down. It seems like only yesterday we were daydreaming. I do my best, but alas, I'm only human. Some days I'm so together, some days I'm hopeless. Some days I'm a hustler, do or die. Some days I only wanna blow trees and get sex high. Trust I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I try to keep it clean, but it's fucked up in these streets.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Hong. I'm a programming committee member of the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival. Thank you for joining us for the Q&A on the paradise we're all looking for. Can you please introduce yourselves first? Let's start with Brian, since I think you put it together.
Yeah, I'm Brian Hu. I work with the Pacific Arts Movement, and we're a nonprofit that produced the paradise we were looking for.
Okay, great. And let's go in the film order. So Norbert.
Hey guys, my name's Norbert J. I did the first short, 2 Miles East. I'm based in Los Angeles.
Wien.
Hi everyone, my name is Wing Wimbe. I directed the second film in the anthology, The Morning Passing on El Cajon Boulevard, and I'm currently in Garden Grove, California.
And Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe. I directed Videoke, the third film, and I am currently in Brooklyn.
Okay, and RJ.
Hi there, my name is RJ Lozada. I directed Reunion 99, and I'm in San Diego at the moment, but on my way back to San Jose.
Great. So we'll be taking audience questions during this session. So if you have any questions, please post them in the comments and we will get to them as time permits. So let me begin first by asking how this project came together. We don't see that many films with 4 co-directors. Yeah, so how did you work out? Did you discuss topics beforehand, etc.? So
I could start with that one. The idea was that, first of all, there aren't many feature-length films that touch on Asian American issues in San Diego. And we realized we can't just wait for those films to come about. We would have to produce that ourselves. And instead of having 1 film about Asian Americans in San Diego, why not have 4 of them? And better yet, why not involve 4 filmmakers who we know have special connections with the city, who've either grown up there, went to school there, worked there, and ask them what kind of stories matter to them. And so the original pitch was, how do we evoke notions of Asian American histories in San Diego, especially as they align with different kinds of neighborhoods there? And how do we think about it in terms of ethnicity, ethnic difference, and then we just let them run with it. And all the filmmakers really, so the filmmakers were ones we chose because we knew that they were adventurous when it comes to film style, with documentary. Yeah, I'll let them go from there.
okay. Anyone want to add about the process of putting this together?
I can add, hopefully everyone can hear me all right. So I had actually done an anthology before as a college student, so this was really a fun project to kind of put together because I think it had not been done before, but I had the sort of experience of understanding what it's like to direct a film in a group of people who are going to have totally different visions. And I was really happy about how this one turned out, because I think there are sort of connections between our work, even though I think we Brian and Pacific Arts Movement really kind of gave us our own autonomy in terms of the way our film was going to turn out.
Yeah, it was kind of nice for Brian to reach out. When he first asked or reached out to me, I was like, I knew I wanted to do it in the neighborhood I grew up in, but then I also wanted to do something where I'm not that familiar with the folks that were in the restaurant. So it was nice for me to also get to know the neighborhood that I spent my childhood in.
Yeah, just one more note. I think what was nice about this project was that it presented San Diego in a much more diverse light. I know that word is like beaten over everyone with like a dead horse, but like really, like San Diego is perceived as a monolith, right? It's like either beach or military. But the way that Brian approached us and encouraged us and pushed us to think about our narratives actually expands, you know, what San Diego really is for a lot of us. So, yeah.
So Joe mentioned that he grew up in the community that he did the film about. What are the rest of your connections to the community that you made the film for?
So I was, my piece was the first one, and it happens right around University City, right by the Miramar Air Base. And when I was living in San Diego, I was at UCSD, and I lived right by Claremont Mesa, so that neighborhood was very familiar to me. And I remember the incident happening 10 years in the past. So yeah, that's my connection.
Also next, so I actually have family members in San Diego, and like in a very Vietnamese style, not knowing who's related who by whom in the actual process of making this film, I found out that certain relatives were my second cousin twice removed, and my extended family lives there. But so that was my relationship to San Diego growing up. But then I moved there after I graduated from college, and I was living there on near El Cajon Boulevard, where my film takes place. I lived about 10 minutes from the mortuary. Sounds very dismal now that I say like that. And now I moved to go to grad school, but I think that San Diego was such a huge part of like my adulthood in a way that I think might have been like different for other people who went to school and grew up there.
Yeah, like Joe, Gwen, I grew up around South San Diego. I did the film on my high school that I went to with folks I went to high school with, and so I think one of the revelations, though, out of that, out of producing this film, was that there was a whole lore about the areas that most of us grew up in. South of the 8, apparently, has some kind of reputation that I was somewhat aware of, but like not totally adopting. So that was an interesting thing to kind of realize, and how pervasive that was in everyone's kind of memories that they were recollecting as they were like reaching back to like what high school was like for them. So yeah, I love San Diego though, no doubt. I love it here, even though it feels like it doesn't really love us sometimes.
I miss San Diego.
Yeah. So so after Brian put you together, what was the process like? Were you on your own? Did you talk to each other during the making of the film, or before or after?
So Norbert actually shot my film, so that was like a connection. Like we were talking, so him and I were talking about our films together. But in terms with RJ, I think we met up once, right? And I think with Wing, we also met up initially, but then for the most part, it was up to us to make it.
I do remember in the beginning, like do we have like a phone call, like like where we all got on the same call? Anyway, for me, it was just more important that everyone knew what everyone else was working on, and that they understood the spirit of the larger project, but that we totally entrusted everybody to let their vision lead the way.
Great. So, how were the communities that you made the film about involved in the entire process of making this film?
So for 2 miles east, I did try to reach out to the family, and they respectfully declined being part of the film. So it kind of made the film more interesting for me because I took it in a different direction and focused about the community, which was about the city, University City. And I just ended up talking to neighbors of the people who lived there, and didn't really, involve myself too much. But they came out and supported the film. Once it premiered, the neighborhood posted about it and got a lot of people out. So they just wanted to see, like, something to memorialize what happened 10 years ago, reflected on the media.
So
For my film, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to ask a follow-up. Is that incident still discussed in the community, or in the church that was so supportive of the family?
I guess it comes up every time when the air base gets new jets, and the discussions, there's like a new jet, the F-18s are being rolled out for different jets. So then that comes into play a lot of the times. The church has moved quite a bit, so a lot of the members of that congregation, they do remember the incident, but there's also a lot of new members coming in as well. So
Thank you. Sorry, Wayne.
No problem. Your question was about how the community was involved, and I think with my film in particular, because it's so intimate, it's not only about an individual and her sort of intimate, personal, family, private sphere, but I think it did take at least a sort of trust that what I was doing was not going to represent people in a bad light. And I think that's a lot of what communities of color worry about when there's people coming in randomly with a camera and videotaping. And I think all of our films also speak to our own personal relationships with the people that we film. So for me, it was a community effort in that to go through a whole process of following someone through a funeral, it did take a lot of people allowing us to do that in order for that to happen. And I think ultimately people were really excited to see the film at the premiere. And I think there was such a awesome kind of feeling to having that shown in San Diego and having people who are in all of our films come through to kind of see what we did with their images. Because with me personally, when we were editing, I only showed one cut before we showed it. Like, it was my final cut, and I was like, okay, this is one I'm showing. Is it okay? But it's so different to see it like on a Vimeo link versus like on a big screen when people can sort of recognize and see each other in that way.
Great. And can you maybe talk a bit about why you chose funeral directors? Because funeral directors often have sort of ambiguous reputations in their community as a definitely necessary service, but also one that often seen as profiting people who are grieving. So can you talk a bit about how they're seen in the community, or how funeral directors in general are seen in the Vietnamese community there? And did anyone talk to you about, why funeral directors when you made the film?
Yeah, I think that was the sort of start of the film was actually just Julie as a person, and she happened to be a funeral director on El Cajon Boulevard. And so when Brian asked if I had any ideas about like neighborhoods I live in or communities I'm involved in, that was like the first person who came up. And in terms of like funeral work, yeah, you're right. I think it is ambiguous. I think that in general, there's also like different faiths in, Vietnamese people are Catholic, Christian, Buddhist, other religions, and the kind of feeling around death and how to mourn is different depending on those communities. So I can't really speak for everyone. But I think it's a gendered profession for sure. And Do Tai Nguyen, who is Julie's mentor in a cut that is not the final one, talks about how those gender dynamics really also affected her because, like, people were, what's it called, superstitious. It's not so much like, oh, they suck because, they profit off of people's death, because I think it's a necessary service that people recognize, but it's like the superstitious side of like, ooh, they're around death a lot. And so do you want to be a part of their like personal lives? Because that could bring like bad luck because they're around dead people all the time. But in general, I think so. It's usually, I think, work that men do, and so it is very different that my film has two women who are doing that.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Joe, you want to talk about your the community that you're working with?
Yeah, they were pretty open. They were very welcoming towards me and to what I was trying to do. There were a couple of people that didn't want to be on film or on the documentary, but they were still introducing me to the people and then gossiping and telling me their stories. And then they'll be like, "Oh, that's a good person to interview," or so they were still like, even though the people that didn't want to be in the film, they were still very interested in helping me out. So yeah, for the most part, it was they pretty much embraced the film. Yeah, even the owners of the restaurant.
Wonderful. Can you talk a bit about that story that man outside the restaurant told about people being stabbed in the bathroom? What what was that about?
Yeah, he was telling me. I didn't know. I didn't. So he was telling me like there was a year in the Philippines where, um, a, like a dozen or maybe more, where people were being stabbed to death, because they were singing "My Way" the wrong way. um, so he was telling me about that, and then I think he was the same guy that mentioned that karaoke was invented by a Filipino, and all. So when he was telling me all this, I didn't know any of it was true. I was just letting him tell me these things on camera, and then I looked them up after, and it all checks out.
Then I didn't know that karaoke was so dangerous.
Yeah, Filipinos take their karaoke seriously.
Okay. So RJ, what was it like reaching out to your high school acquaintances and friends?
It was a mixed bag. I mean, there was a Facebook group kind of trying to drum up the 20th reunion, and it was on that forum that I just kept going in and soliciting for people to share time and space with me for this project. At some point along the production timeline, I was like, okay, I don't have enough people, so I'm going to start like harassing individuals. And so at the end of the day, I think I got about close to 20 participants, a good stock of folks. The challenging thing was that I was producing this remotely from the Bay Area. And so as much as I would have liked to have had like several successive weekends of interviewing folks at my old high school, a lot of it was just like a lot of challenging coordination. All in all, I think it was a great experience for everyone. It really felt like a lot of folks were really eager, surprisingly, to share what had been happening to them or reflections that they had over the last 20 years. I will say that the part I wish I had filmed was when I screened some of this at my actual 20th high school reunion, and that was a total clusterfuck. Yeah, I can't get into it right now because we're on a limited time. We have limited time here, but yeah, if anyone's interested in knowing that debacle, I'm happy to share.
Did anyone who now I'm very intrigued by this now. Did anyone you didn't know reach out to you?
Yeah. Ruth, who is in the film, she reached out to me. I wouldn't say, I mean, she was pretty assertive with wanting to be in the film, and it was clear within the first 5 minutes of our interview why she wanted to participate. Long story short, she just had a lot to get off her chest about that time in her life, and she wanted to, I guess, make peace with it. And this was the mode in which she did it in. And so, yeah.
So since you asked some of the people you interviewed what advice you would give your younger self in high school, what is the advice you would give yourself?
Oh, man. What would I say? Yeah, math doesn't matter.
Great. So we have a couple questions. One of our staff members said, all the stories were so engaging and personally relatable. What are some updates in the lives of the characters since the project was completed? Has making this film or being featured in it enhanced or otherwise affected your life or work path in any way?
I guess I'll take it. You know, after the film, I kind of disconnected a bit from the community, but I know that the father is now in South Korea, and you know, he's living his life. So that's all I can do or say a follow up on that story. But the community at the end of the film, they did have a memorial for the victims of the crash, and they did, you know, like a ceremony about it last year now. So the community still remembers.
Yeah, I mean, Julie and Ryan are still at it. They're still doing funerals and adjusting to funerals in the time of COVID. I haven't been able to visit personally, but I do text sometimes. And as for, I can't speak to how they felt about being featured in this film, but it really sort of changed things for me. It was my first like professional documentary that I had ever finished, because I was making narrative films before, and I always had sort of a deep fear of how funerals were gonna go for me personally as a second gen. And so I think I just feel like such a deeper connection to that part of life in whatever kind of I don't know, existential and morbid way. I just feel like more Vietnamese American after knowing what happens at that part of your life.
Yeah, the owners actually sold the restaurant right after I shot the film. I think maybe like a month or two after I shot the film. But I think it opened back up with new management. I'm not sure if they're doing karaoke still, but I still email and text some of the people I video that was in the video. Yeah. I mean, as
Great.
far as the career path, I think it was a nice break for me because I've been making this documentary for the last 5 years, not the videoke, but another feature. So it was a really nice break for me to get to do that and completely do something else.
And then for me, it was a mixed response. I think folks that really got a lot out of the experience were the ones that were heavily featured, and then others not so much. But I mean that I feel like that's pretty par for the course. I feel like folks that get involved in documentary don't quite know what they're getting involved with, and neither do the filmmakers. So I'll say that. As for a career, I think I'm on this trajectory of pursuing personal docs or like somehow putting myself in there. I'm okay at it, but it seems to be a note that people appreciate, I guess. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, thank you. So this is for Brian. Now that this project is done, first of all, how have you tried to distribute it in San Diego? I know, especially during COVID. And also, what other stories do you want to be told about San Diego Asian American communities?
Well, since it premiered last November, a year ago, the folks at the University City, like where Norbert's film was shot, like they were very intrigued. Some of them were at the premiere and they started talking amongst themselves. And so we were working on some screenings to take place this year, but unfortunately it didn't happen. Otherwise, I mean, we're trying to figure out if there's like university screenings or if it's worth getting this into libraries. Because for us, it's not just important to get it screened, but to get this archived somehow. In terms of other stories, there were a lot of other stories that we were wondering if filmmakers would be interested in taking on, including especially the Pacific Islander stories in San Diego, especially in like the North County area. Still so much more to be told. The huge Karen refugee community from Myanmar that is still waiting to be told, and on and on. But what I loved about all of these pieces that we did end up showing was that none of them even tried to be exhaustive about any neighborhood or any community or ethnic group. Like they ended up being about a place, or about a block, or about a place where people work or went to school, and so it's a reminder that like there's infinite stories to be told, because you can always get smaller and smaller, and sometimes that's where the most compelling stories to happen. So we hope that people see this program and want to see what the infinite other possibilities are here in San Diego.
Okay, thank you so much. This is all the time we have, so thank you so much for joining us. As I'm sure everybody who's watching this knows, today is the last day of the festival. We have our synchronous screening at 6 o'clock. At Donut King. It might be a bit late for you to get our meal deal since it's an hour away, but please watch, please, if you can, get your tickets to Donut King this evening. And also, please watch your passes because you have to start watching before midnight tonight. Otherwise, you won't be able to watch the films. So I hope you have had a great festival. And thank you to everyone for joining us. And we really enjoyed the Paradise we're looking for. And we hope to see more films about San Diego coming up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You say this kill, black and brown, and when will you talk about class in this story? The rest is allegory. Come together, unionize, see it through each other's eyes. No need to fight over supplies while workers save lives. They need protection too. What we gonna do? Organize our way through.
for those behind bars. We must fight hard. Global pandemic, endemic, systemic. No equality, no quality of life.